A lot to get through in this upcoming hour, and we will get to boxing, and we will update you on what we know about this Cattrall fight against Josh Taylor. Is it happening? Yeah. It certainly looks as if it will. Danny, you were on duty the other night. Of course, Crystal Palace up against Chelsea. Chelsea won it at the very death.
Okay.
What was your take on Palace specifically?
I thought they did well, considering the players they had missing. I thought they did okay. Stayed in the game, started growing a bit in confidence, made a few chances. Just lacked a little bit of quality at times in the final third when they got themselves in good positions. I thought Wharton was terrific, the lad they've got from Blackburn. Looks like a real good signing. But ultimately, without the two we talk about all the time, they are lacking a cutting edge. And it's hard to hang on in games against quality opposition. And the little bit of quality I'm talking about with Cole Palmer at the end, you know, the patience, the right decision in the right moment. The best teams have it. And Palace are going to struggle to score goals without those two. You can see that. But there's certainly a fight there. I mean, the lads who came in... even the adaptation of positions for a couple of the players, it was a fighting performance. The fans appreciate it. Majority of fans stayed and gave them a good applause at the end. I mean, you could argue where's that been in certain other games maybe. But yeah, there's enough there to suggest...
that they'll survive.
Yeah.
In the Premier League, they'll survive.
So,
okay.
about.
The reason I ask, I mean, sometimes sooner, it might be sooner than later, it might be later. Roy Hodgson will not be the man at the helm at Crystal Palace. It could well be the man who's at the helm at Ipswich. Kieran McKenna, reported to be amongst contenders, Simon, for the Palace job, if there is to be a change of manager. Palace said to have spoken to McKenna's representatives. But McKenna himself is believed to be unwilling to consider leaving whilst his side are challenging for promotion. They play Millwall.
I should think so.
They're fourth at the moment. Yeah, I get all that. But is it too soon for someone like McKenna to be indexed to a Premier League job?
Well, it was the same story last year with Michael Carrick, wasn't it? Well, you've got a team that's doing quite well. All of a sudden, there's an indexing because people are looking for the next opportunity. There's a risk attached to it. Kieran McKenna's done really well at Ipswich. They've fallen away a little bit in recent weeks, but they're still in touching distance and they've got games in hand that can put them back into the automatic spots. But I think the order of events has been determined now. I think the big clubs that have got the budgets will be the ones that get into the automatic promotion spots.
Yeah.
But Ipswich have done really, really well. Now, going to your question, well, it's a chance that you take, because there's no Premier League experience at management level. The challenges that we've seen with these managers that step up, and I know that Nathan Jones isn't the ideal example, but there's one set of language that you deploy to players in the Championship. There's another set of language that you deploy to multimillionaire footballers in the Premier League, because they respond to it in a certain way. I think, look, you can't have the Palace fans on one argument saying we're not progressive, we've stayed with Roy Hodgson, we need to have progressive thinking. Then the young manager becomes someone that they're indexing to, and people put up their reservations. You know, which one do you want? There's no perfect solution. No. Do I think that he should be considering it himself? No, I think he's got a bloody job to do at Ipswich. They gave him a chance.
Yeah.
What about in the summer, I think, is more the chat.
Well,
if Ipswich don't go up and Palace
depends. Yeah, again, I mean, depends. He's had 1 year. Or 2 years now, isn't it? So he's got him out of League One, and very well done to him for doing it, because others have tried and failed.
Yeah.
He's got them into the Championship. And I think that possibly there's an argument of saying after 2 years, depending on what Ipswich do, if Ipswich get knocked out in a playoff final and are very competitive and they've got a few quid next season to go again, then there's always a school of thought which says you don't always jump at the first opportunity just because it's a Premier League gig. Take the right ones. You can look at Paul Ince for that. You can look at Paul Ince's career and say MK Dons did really, really well, went to Blackburn, wasn't ready.
The only problem is with that, Simon, is the same as a player really, is that the Premier League knocks if Ipswich don't come up and Palace stay up. And you think, let's say he says no, and then Ipswich are mediocre and things start going on downhill a little bit for him. Does the opportunity come again?
I hear that.
I mean, would it come again for the likes of Vincent Kompany? He was strongly linked with Tottenham in the summer, and then they went in the direction of Ange Postecoglou.
Yeah,
Kompany was linked heavily, but stayed with Burnley.
I'd have been gobsmacked if Tottenham Hotspur had taken Vincent Kompany. I'd have been gobsmacked.
There was strong talk of it.
Well, there may well be, but they didn't. And I'm surprised that there wasn't even an indexing of it. It did very well at Burnley, but Burnley and Tottenham Hotspur are two different ends.
Yeah.
And you look at Kieran McKenna and you say, Ipswich is a great football club. I used to really like them when David Sheepshanks was their chairman. Obviously, back in the day, Bobby Robson had this team that brought the team which Alan played in, of course. But for Kieran McKenna, it should be no consideration in his mind about whether Palace are knocking on the door now, because I don't think they will be. I think they'll be sussing it out and seeing what he is for the future. And there's a risk attached to it, a big risk for Crystal Palace.
But there's a risk with anyone.
Well, the one thing there is and there isn't. If you've got someone who's got Premier League experience that understands a division and isn't learning on the job, because the one thing Palace want to do, and there's a criticism that's being made of them repeatedly, is stay in the division. And you don't take risks unless you're going to support a manager for a longer period of time and give him the resources. They tried that once before with Frank de Boer and they pivoted really quickly.
When I say risk with anyone, I mean even if you brought in someone with a lot of experience in the Premier League, you've still got, depending on what happens with Eze and Elise in terms of sales, bringing players in. There's always a risk.
Of course there is. If your platform is good, right, you can take risks. Right, so Brighton bring in Roberto De Zerbi.
Yeah.
People go, who the hell's he? As soon as he's never heard of him, go Google him, find out what he was all about. Yeah, he's come in the door, but Potter and others have built a platform. Yeah. Right, I'm not so sure, without wanting to get into the territory of criticising Crystal Palace for obvious reasons, that their platform is as secure and as solid as other football clubs. That means you've got a double whammy. You've got an ownership model which seems to be a little bit all over the place, more focused on building a new stand. Yeah. You've got a football club that's not recruited very well in recent times and is heavily dependent upon two players. And if they haven't got those two players that are in the wilderness, they've got a manager they brought back after Patrick Vieira's experiment, who's 76 years of age and isn't building for the future. They've got a disenfranchised group of fans. So all of those things are not stable. And that means if you put an inexperienced manager on top of it, you might be adding, even more challenges. That's not to suggest that he can't then cut through a new broom sweep clean, but there's always this risk attached to it. I like him. I think he's a very sensible lad. Very well steeped in a decent set of principles, albeit he learnt them at Man United over the last decade, but he's certainly made an effect on Ipswich.
I mean, it wasn't a punt that Leicester did with Maresca. I mean, he was a Pep disciple. They knew what they were getting.
Well, it was a punt in some respects, in someone that's never managed in the Championship.
Educated punt.
Yeah, educated, but it's still a risk because Leicester had a turnaround of players. I know they kept some good ones, but they lost some good ones, and they had to go into the transfer market.
Do you like Ipswich under McKenna, Danny?
Yeah, I've seen him play a few times. I think what he's done has been amazing. I knew he was at Tottenham when I was there as a young boy, Kieran. Bright lad, nice kid. But he's got them playing a real... I think when you watch a team play, you sense an energy about the players and that they're playing for not just each other but for the managers. Yeah. They seem on board with what he's doing is what I'm trying to say.
Exactly.
And the supporters are enjoying the ride. I don't think Ipswich supporters anticipated them being in a promotion fight this year. They've only just come up from League One, for God's sake. Yeah. I think what they've done so far, he deserves great credit. My gut feeling is this, same as a player and same as coaches. The Premier League opportunity doesn't always knock twice.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the TalkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. TalkSPORT.